Precious is a very beautiful and fair 21-year-old student in UNILAG in the day and a runs girl in the night. The biggest boys and the richest politicians would pay anything for a night with her. But what they do not know is that she is not an ordinary human being like them. At exactly 1 a.m. in the hotel, after the first round of knacks, when the lights are off and her client is asleep, in a terrifying 30-second transformation, she turns into a giant, hungry python and kpai her client. She then makes away with all his belongings, leaving no traces. And the worst part, she cannot be caught. How does she manage to successfully do this? After watching this video, you will fear runs girls for the rest of your life. The black Mercedes-Benz had been sitting in the parking lot of Palm Crest Hotel for 3 whole days. 3 days under the hot Lagos sun. 3 days while other cars came and went, and hotel guests walked past it, talking on their phones, dragging their suitcases, not noticing anything strange. Until the smell started. It began on Sunday morning, just as the sun was climbing over Victoria Island. A faint, sweet smell that made your nose wrinkle. The kind of smell that told you something was very, very wrong. The security guard, a thin man named Musa who had worked at the hotel for 5 years, was the first to notice it. He was doing his usual morning rounds, checking the parking lot, when the smell hit him like a slap. He stopped walking. He covered his nose with his hand. He looked around, trying to find where that terrible smell was coming from. His eyes landed on the Mercedes-Benz. The car was expensive, very expensive, the kind that costs more money than Musa would see in 10 years of working. It was parked in the VIP section, right under the shade of a big palm tree. The windows were tinted so dark that you couldn't see inside, even if you press your face against the glass. But Musa didn't need to see inside. He knew that smell. He had smelled it before, back in his village when his uncle died and they couldn't bury him for 3 days because of a land dispute. That was the smell of death. Musa's hands began to shake. He pulled out his phone and called his supervisor with trembling fingers. "Sir, I think there's something in the VIP car. The Mercedes. Sir, it smells like something died." 20 minutes later, the parking lot was full of people. Hotel managers in their neat suits. Security guards. Even some curious hotel workers who had heard the news and wanted to see what was happening. They all stood in a half circle around the Mercedes, keeping their distance, covering their noses with handkerchiefs and scarves. The hotel's general manager, Mr. Adeyemi, was a big man with a round belly and a shiny bald head. He looked at the car, then at his watch, then at the car again. He was thinking about the hotel's reputation. Palm Crest Hotel was one of the best hotels on Victoria Island. Rich people stayed here. Politicians stayed here. If there was a dead body in the parking lot, the news would spread like wildfire. It would be bad for business. Very bad. "Whose car is this?" he demanded, his voice sharp. One of the front desk girls, a young woman named Blessing, hurried forward with a clipboard. Her hands were shaking as she flipped through the papers. "Sir, the car belongs to room 504. The guest checked in on Thursday night. His name is Mr. Johnson, sir." Mr. Adeyemi frowned. "Mr. Johnson? That's a fake name. I can smell a fake name from a mile away. Who paid for the room?" "Cash, sir. He paid cash for 2 nights." "Of course. Cash. No credit card. No real identity." Mr. Adeyemi had seen this pattern 1,000 times. Men who checked into hotels with fake names and pretty girls were usually hiding something. Usually, they were hiding from their wives. But this time, it looked like the man in room 504 had been hiding something much worse. "Call the police," Mr. Adeyemi said quietly. "And someone get the master key for room 504? Now." The night manager, a quiet man named Femi, had been sleeping at home when he got the call. Now he stood in the hotel lobby, still wearing his pajama shirt under his jacket, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He was trying to remember Thursday night. Trying to remember the man who had checked into room 504. "Yes, I remember him," Femi said, rubbing his tired eyes. "He arrived late. Very late. Around 11:47 p.m. I remember because I was watching the clock, waiting for my shift to end at midnight." Mr. Adeyemi leaned forward. "What did he look like?" "Big man. maybe 50 years old. He was wearing a white agbada and a red cap. Expensive clothes. Expensive shoes. He had the kind of face you see on campaign posters, like a politician. Very important looking. Was he alone? Femi hesitated. This was the part that could get him in trouble. The hotel had rules about discretion. What guests did in their rooms was their business. But now, with the smell of death in the parking lot, those rules didn't seem so important anymore. No, sir. He was with a woman. A young woman. Describe her. Femi closed his eyes, trying to see her face again in his memory. She was beautiful. Very beautiful. Fair skin, like she bleached it or maybe she was mixed. Long hair, but I think it was a wig. She was wearing a gold dress. A short one, like the girls who do runs wear. The dress was shiny, like fish scales. I remember thinking it caught the light in a strange way. How old was she? Young. Maybe 20, 25. But her eyes... Femi paused, searching for the right words. Her eyes looked older, like she had seen things, suffered things. You know what I mean? Mr. Adeyemi nodded slowly. He knew exactly what Femi meant. Lagos was full of young girls with old eyes. What happened after they checked in? They went upstairs. I gave him the room key. The man was laughing, touching her waist. She was smiling, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. They took the elevator to the 5th floor. That was the last time I saw them. You never saw the girl leave? No, sir. My shift ended at midnight. I went home. I don't know what happened after that. But now, everyone was about to find out. The housekeeping supervisor, Mrs. Jane, was a tough woman who had worked in hotels for 25 years. She had seen everything. She had cleaned rooms where people had parties that destroyed the furniture. She had found drugs hidden in toilet tanks. She had walked in on couples doing things that made her pray for their souls. But she had never smelled anything like this. She stood outside room 504, holding the master key in her hand. Behind her stood 2 security guards, Mr. Adeyemi, and a nervous-looking police officer who had just arrived. The smell was so strong here that even with the door closed, it made your eyes water. Open it, Mr. Adeyemi said. Mrs. Jane's hand shook as she slid the key card into the lock. The light turned green. She pushed the door open and immediately jumped back, covering her mouth. The smell that poured out of that room was like a living thing. It grabbed you by the throat and made you want to run away. It was the smell of death mixed with something else. Something cold. Something wrong. The police officer went in first, one hand covering his nose, the other hand on his gun. He took 3 steps into the room and stopped. His body went stiff, like someone had turned him into a statue. Jesus Christ, he whispered. The body lay on the bed. Even from the doorway, you could see that something terrible had happened to the man on that bed. His body was twisted in a way that bodies shouldn't twist, like someone had tried to wring him out like a wet towel. His arms were bent at odd angles. His legs were tangled in the white sheets. But it was his face that made everyone who saw it have nightmares for weeks afterward. His eyes were bulging out of his head like they were trying to escape from his skull. They were big and round and glassy, staring at the ceiling but seeing nothing. His mouth was open in a silent scream, and his tongue was sticking out between his teeth. But his tongue wasn't pink like a normal tongue. It was black, swollen, like a piece of rotten meat. And his neck was covered in bruises. But these weren't normal bruises. They formed a perfect spiral pattern, going around and around his throat like someone had wrapped a thick rope around it and squeezed until there was no life left. The pattern was too perfect, too precise. It didn't look like something human hands could make. The room itself was strange too. Despite the hot Lagos weather outside, the room was freezing cold. Your breath came out in little white puffs, like you were standing in a freezer. The air conditioning was broken. You could see it hanging off the wall, silent and useless. So where was the cold coming from? The police officer walked around the bed carefully, trying not to disturb anything. He was looking for clues, looking for anything that could tell him what had happened in this room. The man's wallet lay on the floor empty. The police officer picked it up with a gloved hand and opened it. No money, no credit cards, just an ID card that said the man's real name was Honorable Chijioka Okonkwo, and he was a politician from Abia State. His phones were gone, both of them. The officer could see the chargers still plugged into the wall, but no phones. His Rolex watch, the kind that cost more than a car, was missing from his wrist. You could see the pale band of skin where it used to sit. Everything valuable had been taken. But that wasn't even the strangest part. The strangest part was that there was no sign of a struggle. None. The room was neat. The furniture was in place. The television was still on the stand. The only thing disturbed was the bed where the dead man lay, and even that looked almost arranged, like someone had carefully positioned him there. How do you kill a full-grown man without any struggle? How do you strangle someone with enough force to make their eyes bulge out, but leave everything else in the room perfectly tidy? And most importantly, where was the girl in the gold dress? By Monday afternoon, the news had leaked to the blogs. In Lagos, news travels faster than light. Faster than sound. Faster than anything. Someone at the hotel had taken a picture of the police cars in the parking lot. Someone else had whispered to a friend who whispered to another friend. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Breaking: Abia State politician found dead in Victoria Island Hotel. Foul play suspected. The blogs ate it up. They always did. Dead politician plus mysterious circumstances equals clicks. Equals shares. Equals money. By Tuesday morning, every newspaper in Lagos had the story on the front page. Television news showed pictures of Honorable Chijioke Okonkwo when he was alive, smiling at campaign rallies, shaking hands with other politicians, cutting ribbons at new buildings. His wife was on TV too, crying, saying her husband was a good man, asking for justice. But no one was talking about the girl in the gold dress. The hotel was keeping that detail quiet. They didn't want people to know that it looked like the politician had been killed by a runs girl. That kind of story would make other men afraid to check into hotels with their side chicks, and the hotel would lose money. Detective work was going on behind the scenes. The police were interviewing everyone who had worked that night. They were checking CCTV cameras. They were calling Honorable Okonkwo's friends and family, trying to piece together his last day alive. But they weren't finding much. It was like the girl had vanished into thin air, like she was never there at all. And then, on Tuesday morning, everything changed. The second body was found. Senator Emeka Nwosu was an important man. Very important. He represented Lagos Central in the Nigerian Senate. He had 3 houses, 5 cars, and more money than he could count. He also had a wife and 4 children who thought he was working late on Monday night. But Senator Nwosu wasn't working late. He was at the Golden Tulip Hotel in Lekki Phase 1, in room 807, with a girl he had met on Instagram. His security detail, 2 big men with guns and serious faces, had been waiting in the hotel lobby all night. They sat in the leather chairs, watching the elevator doors, waiting for the senator to come down so they could drive him home. They waited all night. The senator never came down. At 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, when the senator still hadn't appeared, the head of security started to worry. He called the senator's phone. No answer. He called again. Nothing. He sent a text message. No reply. Finally, he went upstairs and knocked on the door of room 807. No answer. He knocked louder. Senator? Sir? Are you okay? Silence. The security man's heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He ran back downstairs and told the hotel manager they needed to open the room. Now, when they opened the door to room 807, they found Senator Emeka Nwosu lying on the bed, dead. His eyes were bulging out of his head, just like Honorable Okonkwo's. His tongue was black and swollen. His neck had the same spiral bruising pattern, perfect and precise and impossible. The room was ice cold, even though the air conditioning was off. His wallet was empty. His phones were gone. His gold chain had been taken from his neck. And the girl he had gone upstairs with, a beautiful, fair-skinned girl in a red dress, had disappeared completely. But this time, there was one crucial difference. This time, the CCTV cameras had caught her face. The hotel security manager played the footage for the police. Everyone crowded around the small screen, watching the grainy black and white video. There she was, walking through the lobby at 11:58 p.m. The red dress hugged her body like a second skin. Her heels clicked on the marble floor. Her long hair swayed as she walked. Even in the poor quality video, you could see that she was stunning. beautiful in a way that made men forget their own names. She walked with confidence. No, more than confidence. She walked like she owned the world. Like she knew every eye in that lobby was on her, and she didn't care. Senator Nwosu walked beside her, his hand on her waist, a big smile on his face. He looked like a man who thought he was the luckiest person alive. They got into the elevator together. The doors closed. The security manager fast-forwarded through the footage. Hours passed on the screen in seconds. People came and went. The lobby emptied. The night grew late. But the girl in the red dress never came back down. The elevator doors never opened to let her out. The stairwell cameras never caught her leaving. It was like she had gone up to the 8th floor and simply vanished. One of the police officers leaned closer to the screen. Zoom in on her face. The security manager zoomed in. The image became blurry, pixelated, but you could still make out her features. Large eyes, full lips, high cheekbones, fair skin that seemed to glow even in the bad lighting. And then someone said the words that made everyone's blood run cold. I've seen that face before. It was one of the detectives from the Victoria Island case. He pulled out his phone and showed them a screenshot from the Palm Crest Hotel CCTV footage. The girl in the gold dress, walking through the lobby on Thursday night with Honorable Okonkwo. They put the two images side by side. Different dresses, different wigs, but the same face, the same eyes, the same walk. It was her, the same girl, which meant this wasn't just a murder. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. This was something else entirely. This was a pattern. And Lagos, big, busy, chaotic Lagos, suddenly felt very small. Because somewhere in this city of 20 million people, there was a young woman who could kill powerful men without leaving a trace. A woman who could disappear like smoke. A woman who was hunting. And she was still out there. Precious Okafor lived in a world where beauty was currency, and she was wealthy. She'd known her worth since she was 14, when her light skin and long legs started drawing attention like a magnet. Now, at 21, she was a final-year business administration student at Lagos State University by day, but by night, she was Yellow Angel, a sought-after presence in Lagos's high-stakes world. Her room in Surulere was small, but it was her kingdom. She shared a compound with 6 other families, a noisy, busy place where people mostly minded their own business. The silence in her room, now that her roommate, Ngozi, had moved out after mumbling about bad dreams and strange sounds, felt both freeing and dangerously empty. Tonight, Precious prepared for work. She stood before her cracked mirror, the glass splitting her image like a jagged tear. With a hand as steady as a surgeon's, she applied her war paint, a defiant slash of red lipstick. Her cheap work phone, the one she used just for this business, lit up. It was a message for Yellow Angel. Still available tonight? Eco Hotel. 5 cents cas urgent. A slow smile curved her lips. 500,000 naira. That was twice her usual rate for a night. Eco Hotel meant serious money. Probably a man from oil, gas, or construction. Those men were easy targets. They were arrogant, loved to show off with expensive sweets and champagne they couldn't pronounce. She typed back a single word that sealed the man's fate. Yes. Send room number at 11 p.m. The confirmation came at 10:47 p.m. Room 1205. Asked for Mr. Johnson. Precious checked her purse. It held 2 things, her real phone, which was off and hidden deep inside, and a small, antique silver locket her mother had given her. She never wore it, but she always carried it. It was her only anchor. She hailed a yellow and black taxi. As it sped toward Victoria Island 6, she watched Lagos transform around her. The hawkers packed their wares, the yellow danfos, buses, roared through the traffic, and the mainland scattered. Frantic lights gave way to the sleek, ordered chaos of the island. The journey was when the feeling started. It was a deep, unsettling thrum in her gut. She called it the thing. It was not her, but a separate, hungry entity that only woke when darkness was complete and a client was near. She shivered, despite the hot night air. Not yet. Not yet. She had to wait for the transformation to begin naturally, after midnight. It was the only way to control it. The Eco Hotel lobby was all polished marble and hushed conversations. Precious walked through it, a vision in her red dress, her heels clicking a precise rhythm on the floor. No one looked too closely. She was just another beautiful woman, an expected fixture in this ecosystem. She reached room 1205. She took a deep breath, replacing her student-tired face with the perfect mask of the desirable, uncatchable yellow angel. Mr. Johnson was exactly as she had predicted. Mid-40s, a prominent pot belly, gold chains shining against his thick neck, and a heavy, expensive agbada draped carelessly over a chair. His eyes immediately crawled over her body, consuming her. "Ah, you're even finer than your pictures," he said, his Igbo accent thick with satisfaction. "Come, sit down. You want champagne?" Precious glided to the edge of the bed and perched like a butterfly. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice soft and respectful. The next hour was a performance she had mastered. He talked about his construction contracts, his houses in Lekki and Abuja, and, predictably, his wife who just didn't understand him. Precious laughed exactly on cue, touched his arm at the precise moments of false intimacy, and pretended to be suitably impressed by his wealth. He is just another payment, she reminded herself. Just a laptop, just 1 month of mama's medication. At 11:30 p.m., he excused himself to the bathroom. She heard the shower running. This was the quiet moment. She checked her small bag. The brown envelope with 500,000 naira was already tucked inside. She'd counted the bundles while he was bragging. The cheap phone for work was on the nightstand. Everything was in place. Mr. Johnson emerged, smelling of the hotel's generic soap and renewed confidence. He poured more champagne, drank it quickly, and climbed into the enormous bed. "Come," he said, patting the space beside him, his eyes heavy with expectation. Precious joined him. What followed was the worst part, his clumsy, aggressive touch. She closed her eyes, detaching her mind from her body. She ran through her mental checklist, school fees, her mother's medical bills in Enugu, the broken laptop she needed to replace for her coursework. Focus on the money, not the man. By 12:30 a.m., it was over. Mr. Johnson was snoring heavily. Precious lay still, her eyes fixed on the digital clock on the nightstand. She felt a distinct change in the atmosphere. The luxurious hotel room suddenly felt cold. Her skin began to itch, a deep, painful sensation. The thing in her belly stretched. It was not just awake now. It was hungry. This was the point of no return. Her fingers started to tingle. She flexed them slowly, watching the joints loosen and seem to lengthen. Her breath came out in visible, frosty puffs in the suddenly ice-cold room. Wait for the bell. Precious silently slipped out of bed, her body gleaming in the faint light. Mr. Johnson continued to snore. The thing inside her was now fully awake, coiling and uncoiling with anticipation. She knew that if she didn't feed it, it would begin to feed on her. She glanced at the nightstand. She had set a silent, vibrating alarm on her watch. A reminder, a psychological line she never crossed. She needed to transform at exactly 1 a.m. Any earlier, and the chaos of the change might be too much. She stood in the center of the room, her eyes wide as the skin on her stomach began to ripple. The internal alarm vibrated against her wrist. The transformation began. If you're enjoying this video, kindly take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel for even more true life stories. This is a simple act, but it means a lot to us. It was 30 seconds of pure agony and impossible speed. Her skin shimmered, her spine extended, and she heard a terrifying crunch as her vertebrae multiplied, giving her body impossible length. Her legs dissolved and reformed, fusing together into a single, thick, powerful base. Her jaw unhinged with a soft, sickening click. Her eyes, already striking, grew larger still, the human pupils shrinking and sharpening into vertical slits that saw perfectly in the absolute dark. Where precious Okafor had stood, a fearsome creature now rested. It was a python, 15 feet of pure, wet metal muscle, thick as a man's thigh. Its scales gleamed in the moonlight like a coat of mail. The last thing to transform was her neck. As the scales formed, the silver locket she carried in her hand dropped to the carpet with a tiny, almost inaudible clink. The massive snake moved with impossible silence across the thick carpet. Its forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. It could sense the intense heat of the man's sleeping body, the pulsing rhythm of his heart, the heavy carbon dioxide of his breath. The hunger. It was an absolute demand, a blinding instinct that drowned out every thought of school fees or mothers. The python flowed up the bed frame, coiling smoothly over the fine cotton sheets. Mr. Johnson made a small, satisfied sound in his sleep, unaware that death was resting inches from his face. The python was patient. It had done this many times before. It positioned itself carefully, its massive head near the man's feet, its body forming a loose, preparatory coil around his legs. Then, with a terrifying suddenness that no human eye could follow, it struck. The first loop snapped around his waist. The second locked his chest. The third, the kill shot, went around his throat. Mr. Johnson's eyes snapped open in sheer terror. He tried to scream, but the third coil was already tight, cutting off the air and the sound. He thrashed, his arms flailing wildly against the suffocating pressure, but the snake's grip was absolute, an unyielding vice. This was the constrictor's art. It was not crushing bone, but stealing breath. Each time Mr. Johnson exhaled, the python tightened further, preventing his lungs from refilling. His breath became smaller and smaller until there was nothing left. He clawed desperately at the smooth, glass-like scales, but they offered no grip. His face cycled through a terrifying spectrum, red then purple. His eyes bulged out like burst grapes. His tongue forced itself between his teeth. The python felt his heart's frantic hammering against its coils, felt it begin to skip and stutter. It squeezed harder, drawing a final, deep satisfaction from the struggle. 3 minutes. That was the kill time. When Mr. Johnson's body went completely limp, the python waited for an extra 60 seconds, a cold, unthinking guarantee. Then, with mechanical efficiency, it slowly uncoiled. The transformation back was quicker, 20 seconds. Bones shortened, scales became soft skin, the jaw clicked back into place. Precious stood beside the bed, her body slick with sweat despite the cold, breathing hard, the animal instinct receding. She immediately went into professional mode, the student businesswoman taking over. She pulled his work and personal phones, an iPhone and a Samsung, from the nightstand and secured them. She took the thick wallet from his trouser pocket and the second, hidden wallet from his jacket. She stripped the expensive Patek Philippe watch from his wrist. She found his car keys and passport. She dressed in the dark, the red dress, the heels, the wig, her hands steady despite the recent horror. She wiped down every surface she might have touched with a hotel towel, a practiced, necessary habit. She left the room. She didn't use the elevator. The stairwell was always safer. The night security barely saw her. Just another young woman leaving after work or a runs girl. She walked 3 blocks before hailing a taxi, her bag heavy with the night's earnings and stolen goods. She was back in her small room in Surulere, lying in her bed. Her skin felt incredible. It was glowing with a renewed, almost supernatural vitality. The thing in her belly was satisfied, sated, and sleeping soundly. This was the life Precious had now, the price she paid for her mother's survival and her own financial freedom. It had been 6 months since she made the deal, and for 6 months, she'd been invisible. She had never, ever been caught. She will never get caught. After all, she is feeding on men's lust. Indeed, a lot of things are happening in Lagos, but you don't know because you haven't seen one. If you've made it here, then you were destined for this. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when we upload the next parts of this story. Thanks for watching.